What's up, guys? So it has been a minute since we have last filmed. I'm officially back from maternity leave.
I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
Welcome to our channel, or welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I just had a baby, so I've been gone for a little over a month. It's kind of wild that my baby is gonna be a month in like 2 days. It honestly feels like I gave birth yesterday still. Like, I can't even believe a month has almost gone by. But yeah, if you read the title of today's video, this is the highly anticipated birth story video. I honestly am so excited to share this story just because I had such a great experience. Like, overall, my experience honestly couldn't have gone any better. So I'm very excited to share it with you guys. But before we get started with today's video, I just really quickly want to say a huge thank you to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Scentbird is actually a fragrance subscription service where you're able to choose new designer fragrances for just $17 a month. Scentbird reimagines everything about how people discover, shop for, purchase, and even experience fragrances. It's very flexible and you can skip a month without penalties. You can also upgrade to receive 2 or 3 products a month. With each fragrance, you'll get a 30-day supply, so you're able to try out fragrances without committing to a full bottle, because we all know how expensive full bottles can be. You can also head over to Scentbird's recommendation quiz where they'll help you pick out a fragrance that you'll love. They have perfumes, colognes, and unisex options as well. There are over 600 different designer brands to choose from, such as Prada, Gucci, Marc Jacobs, which is one of my favorites. Their vials are 8 times bigger than regular perfume samples. They're really portable and easy to bring with you everywhere. So I personally tend to stick with perfumes. I love to change up my scents for different seasons. So like in the summer, I tend to wear something more florally. I personally love the Marc Jacobs Daisy line. Every time I wear it, I get a bunch of compliments, so it definitely makes me feel really good. So I actually picked out 4 fragrances from Scentbird. So the one that I got for Zach is actually by Tommy Bahama. It's called Maritime, and this one just smells so good. It smells like a man. The fragrance notes for this one are bergamot, pink pepper, and cedarwood. The next one is called Metal Flower by The Harmonist, and this one is just super florally. And the top notes for this one are rose oxides, I really hope I'm saying that right, orange blossom, rose of May, patchouli, and white musks. The next one is definitely one of my favorites. It's Daisy by Marc Jacobs. This is another really florally scent. Like I said, for the summertime, these are definitely my go-to scents. The top fragrance notes for this fragrance is violet leaves, jasmine, and strawberry. And then the last fragrance is Bella by Vince Camuto. I think this might be one of my new favorites, honestly. The top fragrance notes in this one are nectarine, jasmine, amber, and bergamot. Honestly, I feel like this could be my everyday scent. I love it that much. And I've never heard of this before until I saw it on Scentbird. So that's another reason I really love Scentbird, because you can discover so many new fragrances that you probably would have never seen before. I love how chic and classy the cases look. All you have to do is just twist it, and then you're able to spray your perfume or cologne. You can also take the vials out, so if you wanted to switch out your scent, you could do that and save the case. So definitely check out Scentbird, and make sure to click the link in my description box down below and use my code RZ55 to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. That's only $8 for your first month. And some exciting news, Scentbird is now available in Canada, so definitely check them out. Huge thank you again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Right, but without further ado, let's just jump right into the birth story, because I'm dying to tell you guys what happened. So I guess I'm just gonna start from the very beginning. So on June 1st, I think it was my first cervix check. Yeah, it was my first cervix check. I hadn't gotten one before. I was only like 1 centimeter dilated and like 60% effaced, I think. So not very far along at all. I didn't think I was gonna be giving birth anytime soon, and neither did my OB. During that appointment, we talked about an induction date if I went past my due date. My due date was actually June 10th. So we kind of discussed that. I told her I didn't really want to be induced if I didn't need to be, and she was like, okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, basically. Up until this point, I had 0 signs of labor. But after this appointment, we went home, and I started to notice that I started spotting. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was pretty consistent. But I kind of just figured maybe I was like sensitive to the check. If you don't know what a cervix check is, they're pretty invasive and they're very uncomfortable. It's typical to like bleed after them every once in a while. So I kind of just thought it was like normal, and I brushed it off. And then the next day on June 2nd, I actually lost my mucus plug. And I knew this because I was Googling images on Google. I literally Googled everything during my pregnancy. So that was like exciting exciting for me, but also I wasn't really thinking anything of it because I know that sometimes women lose their mucus plug and they don't go into labor for like another 2 weeks. So I didn't really think anything of it, but it was kind of exciting, like, ooh, maybe baby girl's gonna be here pretty soon. So June 2nd, I just continued life. Everything was fine. No other symptoms. Nothing else crazy was happening. I just lost my mucus plug. And then the next morning on June 3rd, I noticed that I started leaking a little bit. It wasn't a lot of fluid, but it was like enough to where I noticed it, and it was clear fluid. So I was like, okay, I'm not peeing myself, which at first I thought that's what it was. I just thought I couldn't control my bladder. So I actually decided to call my doctor. I actually have some footage of this phone call, so I'm gonna insert that here so you guys can see.
How can I help you?
Hi, I was just wondering if I could speak to a nurse because I'm not sure if my water broke or not.
Okay, let me see. What is your name?
Rachelle?
Miss Rachelle?
Yes.
Hi, Rachelle. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry I'm calling back again. So I know I told you that I thought I lost my mucus plug, and I'm almost positive that's what that was. And then today I started like leaking consistently, just like clear fluid, and it'll just come in like random bursts. So like I'll be walking and then all of a sudden I'll feel a small little gush, and then nothing happens, and then a little bit later I feel another little gush.
Well, then just to be safe, the best thing that you can do is go over to the hospital to OB triage.
God, I don't want to go though, and it's not that.
I know. Because, like, if we go, we should, like, bring all of our stuff just in case it is. But she's right, though. We can't really, like,
sit over the weekend. This is, like, the worst day to do it, I think, now.
Why?
Just because I wish I had more time to wait. I don't want to go to the hospital if I don't need to. Especially if it's, like, the very beginning of labor and I'm just stuck at the hospital.
But if your thing broke, then, like...
Yeah, but then they're just going to keep, like... I just wanted it to, like, progress. So.
I know, but you can't really choose.
All right, guess we're going to the hospital. So after talking to the doctor, I kind of wanted to go into my OB's office just to see if they could like check to see if it was my water leaking, because there's this test that they can do to check and see if it's amniotic fluid. But because June 3rd was a Friday, they didn't have any availability for me. So basically she was like, you would have to go into the hospital if you wanted to do that test. And my biggest thing was that I didn't want to go to the hospital too early, which sometimes things don't go as planned and that's totally fine. So I didn't want to go until I knew for sure that my water broke. So after having that phone call, Zach and I decided that we're just gonna stay home and just like see if I progress anymore, see if I get contractions, and just kind of like play it by ear. So I decided it would be a great idea to go and bounce on my medicine ball. This is when everything took a turn. I literally bounced on my medicine ball probably like 3 times. The 3rd time I did it, I had the biggest gush of water. I kid you not, it was like what happens in the movies, like a balloon just bursted. And so in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, my water definitely just broke. Like I knew, no questions asked, that was my water. And yeah, and we decided, okay, it's probably time to go to the hospital. I have some footage of us on the way to the hospital, so I'm gonna insert that here. A lot has happened since that last clip. Basically, I'm almost 100% sure my water broke. After that phone call, I kind of wanted to wait like a little bit just to see like what happens, if I'm gonna progress anymore, if I'm gonna get any contractions, because I haven't felt any contractions so far. I was bouncing on like the medicine ball, and literally right after bouncing on the medicine ball, my water broke. Wouldn't you agree that's what that was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so Zach and I just packed up our hospital bags, we got everything ready, and now we're gonna go head to the hospital and see if my water actually did break. Hopefully we have our daughter today. That would be pretty sick.
I think we will.
If
not today, then late tonight.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna see. I'm literally sitting on a towel. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm sitting on a towel because I'm still gushing. So we get to the hospital and we were in triage for a really long time. So they checked me in triage. I was still like 1 centimeter dilated. I was basically the same as I was at my cervix check appointment. So I hadn't progressed at all in that aspect, but they did confirm that my water had broken. At this point, it was just Zach and I there. So my mom actually was able to come to the hospital, which I'm so grateful for. Oh my gosh. I remember at my last appointment, I like was so nervous to ask my OB, but I was like, is there any way like I could have my mom there too? And she was like, oh yeah, like our hospital actually allows you to have 2 people now, which was so amazing. So Zach and I were waiting in triage. We were talking to my mom. We were letting her know like, hey, we're still waiting for a room. You know, it's probably gonna be a while because our hospital was pretty packed. There were a lot of people there. We were in this waiting room for a really long time, but I still had 0 contractions, no other symptoms of labor or anything like that. So I remember asking the nurse, I'm like, how long do you think this is gonna be? And she was like, probably like 24 hours. So I was like, oh my gosh. In my birth plan, I did not want to come to the hospital early at all. And here I am gonna be here for like 24 hours before I see this baby. So yeah, so hours passed and we finally got out of triage and moved into the room that we were in while I was like laboring. And we actually got a clip of this as well. So I'm gonna insert that footage here. We're no longer in triage. My mom's here. I'm hooked up to my IV. We've already been here for 8 hours. We've come to that conclusion, which seems really crazy to me. Still don't have any crazy like contractions or anything. Nothing's really happening.
Pretty uneventful.
Yeah, so
Got lost at the emergency room once.
so we're just kind of waiting. I'm gonna get checked here in probably any time now. So they're gonna check me, see if I'm dilated anymore, and hopefully I am. My mom finally made it to the hospital and we were all just in this room kind of waiting for me to progress. At this point, I still had no contractions. I hadn't felt any different at all. Shortly after we took that video, one of the nurses came back in and she actually gave me this tablet, and I forget what it's called, but I remember they were talking to me about possibly inducing me, which I really didn't want to get induced. That was something I wanted to avoid at all costs. So they were talking about possibly inducing me, but they wanted to give me this pill first. And basically what this pill did is it just helped soften my cervix because I wasn't dilated at all. I was like 1 centimeter dilated. It was barely effaced. They wanted to soften my cervix a little bit more to see what would happen. I think the goal was to try and get me to have contractions. So basically I took this little pill and then out of nowhere, I started getting contractions like very consistently. So they had me like hooked up to the machines and stuff like that. And the nurse came back in and she was like, okay, so since you're having like pretty steady contractions, I don't think we're gonna be able to give you the Pitocin because that would heighten my contractions even more. And they didn't want it to be too stressful on baby girl. So I remember the nurse asked me, she's like, do you plan on getting an epidural? And I was like, no, I'd like to do this as natural as possible. And so she was like, okay, then I guess we'll just wait it out and let your body do what it's gotta do. Also, side note, my nurses were amazing. I had 3 different nurses during my stay because I was there for a really long time. My nurses were really amazing. They only asked me if I wanted an epidural one time, and then they pretty much just left us on our own and like let me do what I had to do and only came in when necessary, which they were the greatest people. I'm gonna talk more about them at the end, but she was like, okay, well, we're just gonna let your body do what it's gotta do because obviously you're having contractions now, so let's just see how you progress before we decide to do anything else. But at this point, she was like, I don't think you're gonna need Pitocin because your body's already naturally doing what it's supposed to do. So that was like a big relief to me because I was kind of stressing out about that. So as time went on, my contractions started to become more and more frequent. I had less breaks in between, and there was one point during this time where the pain was a lot. It definitely was a lot. I'm not gonna say you don't experience pain because contractions are painful. Like, they're no joke, but they're bearable and our bodies are built to birth. So yeah, that's what I had to like keep reminding myself. But anyways, my poor middle nurse, I feel like she had the worst shift because during that middle stage, I was going through it. I was like shaking, I was puking. Remember, I was like hunched over just like dealing with one of my contractions, and out of nowhere, I just turn over and just start like projectile vomiting. Sorry if that grosses you out, but the pain was definitely a lot. So I puked all over the floor and then I finally made it to the toilet. But I did that like a couple times, and then finally my nurse came in and she was like, okay, we're gonna give you some anti-nausea medicine just so this doesn't happen again. And then after I took that, I didn't throw up anymore. But one thing is I was able to like consistently breathe through every contraction. So that definitely helped a lot. Also, just having my mom and Zach there was a big help. I did a lot of research on hypnobirthing, which if you don't know what that is, basically is just using like meditation, breathing, and like touch to cope with pain during labor and stuff like that. So I knew like which positions to go into and like what to do, but it was really nice having my mom and Zach there because they were constantly like massaging me. They were constantly right by my side. When I was puking, they were holding my hair. It was definitely a 2-person job though, and Zach will be the first to admit that he could not have done that without my mom. So as I was puking and stuff like that, I kept getting this urge that I had to like push. So I was like, okay, let's check me. Let's see if I'm any more dilated. And I was so hopeful that I was gonna be like a little bit more dilated. I get checked. I'm like 1.5 centimeters at this point. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how am I projectile vomiting, feeling like I need to push, and I'm only 1.5 centimeters dilated? So I remember like my mom, Zach, and I, we all looked at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a long night. So after that, we were kind of just like, okay, well, I guess we gotta ride it out some more. I have some footage of my mom and Zach just like comforting me during my contractions. So I'm gonna insert that here so you guys can kind of see.
Crazy people are just waking up, coming to work right now.
will say, for how long my hair hasn't felt like that long, really. I don't really remember any of it. It just seems like a blur.
So after finding out that I was not very dilated, I was definitely discouraged, but I tried not to let that distract me. I just tried to like focus on my body, focus on my breathing, and just stay as in my zone as I possibly could. So when I had those urges to push, I was like, okay, maybe I just have to go to the bathroom. So I like tried to go to the bathroom multiple times, and I remember I kept switching positions. I would sit on the toilet for a little bit, couldn't go to the bathroom. But I think sitting on the toilet definitely helped baby drop a little bit. I was constantly moving, which I definitely think helped a lot. I couldn't just lay on my back. That was like the most uncomfortable position for me. So anyways, many hours later, it's already June 4th at this point. I didn't realize, but I was already in transition. This was the part where I started to become like very mentally exhausted. I remember vividly like telling my mom and Zach, I need to get the epidural right now. Like I cannot do this. But luckily they kept assuring me like, you've got this, only a little bit more to go. They say usually during transition, that's the time when you start to like doubt yourself and think there's no way I can do this. And I definitely had that moment. And out of nowhere, as I'm like begging for the epidural and stuff, my contractions are at like their peak. And at this point, I wasn't getting very many breaks in between contractions. So like I would have a contraction, have like a 2-second break, and then another one would start right back up again. I started to get that same urge that I had previously to push again. We tried to like wait as long as I could, but with every contraction, I kept saying, I was like, I have to push. So we finally called my nurse in. Zach tells her, Rachelle feels like she has to push, like can we get her checked out one more time? And at this point it's been like several hours since they last checked me. I remember so vividly, I'm laying there and my nurse is checking me and she goes, oh my gosh, I think you're 9.5 centimeters dilated. My mom and Zach just started crying because they were so relieved and so excited that like it was almost time for baby girl to be here. I don't even know what I was thinking. I think I was just like, okay, time to get this baby out of me. Like, can I push finally? So she was like, okay, let me just get another nurse in here just to confirm that you're actually 9.5 centimeters dilated. So another nurse comes in, another nurse checks me and she's like, oh yeah, you're ready to go. It's time to go. Part of my birth plan was to get my placenta encapsulated. So I had to bring a cooler to the hospital. And I remember my mom had the cooler and we had it in the car still. We didn't have it in the room with us. So I got moved into the delivery room. I'm ready to go. Baby girl is ready to come out and my mom has to go and get the cooler. So my mom is like running to the car to go grab this cooler. Meanwhile, my nurse is like, okay, just breathe through the contractions, just breathe through. But I feel like I have to push. If you've given birth, you can probably relate to this, but trying to breathe through contractions when you have to push is probably one of the hardest things. And I just remember her telling me like, just breathe. We have to wait for your mom. Your mom's almost back. And I was like, it felt like it was never gonna end. And so finally my mom got back to the room. I started doing a couple practice pushes. During my practice pushes, baby girl was already like coming out pretty much. Finally the doctor came. As soon as she came into the room, it was go time. I think I pushed like 6 times and that was it. And baby girl was here. So she came out pretty fast. The whole pushing her out part was a breeze. That was like the easy part. But overall, it was just such a beautiful experience. I had the best nurses and they definitely made my experience so much better. I only had one nurse ask me in the very beginning. She was like, do you want an epidural? And I said no. And she was like, oh, awesome. She was very encouraging about the fact that I wanted to do a natural birth, which honestly, I think is kind of rare. I've noticed from my own personal experiences that people are kind of skeptical about natural births. So it was really refreshing to like tell the nurses and have them be so encouraging. But yeah, overall, it was a very positive and empowering experience. I will say I have never been more proud of myself. So that's my birth story. It was definitely a crazy experience. Zach and I still look at each other and we're like, how was that real? How did that happen? Like, how did I give birth to a full human? It's just amazing what our bodies can do. Comment down below some positive birth stories that you guys have because I feel like there's a lot of fear around giving birth. I feel like it's important to like erase that fear. It doesn't have to be scary. There's no right or wrong way to give birth. By the way, I just want to say that disclaimer. Giving birth is beautiful. It doesn't matter if you had it natural. It doesn't matter if you had an epidural. Everyone has the right to choose what they want to do. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and I will see you guys in our next YouTube video. Mwah. Bye!